Hello and welcome back to the MERN Stack series. Today we're going to be looking into the world of MongoDB and Mongoose to create our very first data model. Let's start off with a quick recap to see what we did in our last lesson. This is what our server.js file looks like so far. We've made a few API endpoints and explored what we can do with both the request object and the response object. In the last video, we looked at how to use a JSON response, how to use status codes in our responses, and also how we can utilize plain text responses like these. Now, the first thing we need to do is actually install Mongoose, which is the ODM or the Object Data Modeling Library for MongoDB and Node.js. If you have been following along, we've already done this on one of our previous videos. However, I'll just go over it real quick again. All you have to do is type in your terminal npm install mongoose, and that should do the trick. If your package is already installed, you're going to see a message here saying that the package is already up to date. Now, the first thing we're going to do to start working with Mongoose is create a new folder inside our MERN application folder. So just go ahead and click this new folder icon in VS Code, and we're going to make the folder named models. Now, this is the standard naming convention that we have to store Mongoose models inside our MERN application. Open this up and make a new file called user.js. For now, we're going to create a simple user model. Let's assume that this model is going to store information about users in our hypothetical system. So let's start off by importing the Mongoose package inside our file, which should be already familiar to you by now. Require Mongoose. Now we're going to use a certain syntax to create a Mongoose schema. This is how we're going to do it. Let's create a const named user schema, and let's create a new Mongoose schema. And this is a special function that I'm calling from the Mongoose object. And inside this function, I'm going to pass a JavaScript object. Now, all I need to do inside this is define key value pairs like this. Now, I'm saying that I want a username property of this user, and it should be of a type string. I can also add a name property with a type string. Perhaps I could also add an email, and maybe let's keep an age, which could be a number. So this is just a very basic model that I'm creating for demonstration purposes. Now, how do we actually turn this schema into a data model? Well, we're going to use another command, which is gonna look something like this. Let's create a new user object, and we're going to use the model command or the model function. And inside this, we need to pass two parameters. The first is the name of our model, which I'm naming it user, and the second is going to be the schema that we created up here. So I'm just going to pass in that object right here. Now, how do we actually use this user model in our file? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to export it from this file. So the syntax for that would be something like this: module.export, and I'm going to select user. So this is what our user.js file is going to look like. Now let's go back open to our server.js file and actually import this user that we exported from this file. So all I need to do in this folder is write in the same syntax. I'm going to write user equals require, and now I'm going to navigate into my models folder. So I'm just going to type dot slash, then select this models folder, another slash, and then we're just going to type in the name of our file, which is showing up here in VS Code as well. So you can just select that. Now that I have this, the user model is actually being imported into my server.js file. So I can use it and actually create a new Mongoose object. Before I do that though, there's a few things that I need to take care of. First of all, we need to connect to our MongoDB database. How are we going to do that? Well, let's go over and open the application that we installed in one of our previous videos, which is MongoDB Compass. Just click on that to open it up because we need that to get the connection string to actually get our database connection working. Now, when this opens up, you should see this page open up, and all you have to do is copy this connection string and then click on the connect button. Once you do this, you should see a page like this. Don't worry if you don't see any databases here because we're going to create a completely new database for our application. Click on the plus button next to the databases and you should be able to create a new database right here. Let's name our database something like maybe MERN application DB. And for the collection name, you can just type in test or anything you want because this is just going to be a dummy collection to get this database started. Click on create database and we should see our database right here with one folder inside it named test. That's great. Let's go back into our server.js file. And in here, the first thing we're going to do is actually import the Mongoose object. Pretty familiar syntax by now. And now let's establish a connection to our database. Type in mongoose.connect and then let's put in the connection string that we got from MongoDB Compass, add a slash, and then add the name of our database. In this case, the name of our database was MERN application DB. Now, after this, I actually want to print a message when I've successfully connected to the database. So I'm just going to type in dot then and then pass an arrow function to it. In this case, my arrow function is simply going to console log connected to database. So what I'm saying is once the connection is done, I want to print out this message. Now, what if an error occurs? We want to handle that as well. So let's catch that error like this. We're going to pass an arrow function which takes the error as an argument, and then we're going to console.log an error occurred. All right, let's run this code and see what happens. Let's go over into our terminal right here and type in node server.js. All right, we can see that we have successfully connected to the database. To wind up the video, let's just create a simple user object inside our model. Let's go ahead right here and type in a new user. So let's maybe create a new user object and we want to write something like this. We're going to write new and then user. Now user is the model that we've imported right here. And inside this, we're going to pass a JavaScript object which will be converted to a MongoDB document once we pass it inside this user model. So let's, for example, give it a new username. Maybe this is just a new user. I'm just typing in some sample data here. And we had a name. So the name could be another string. Let's just type in John Doe. Let's give him an email. And let's give him an age. Now, these are all the fields that we had actually defined here inside our user.js file. Username, name, email, and age. So we've just created an object with all of those properties. Now we actually need to save this in our database. So let's go ahead and type new user.save. Now we actually need to run our server.js file one more time in order to run this code. So let's just go ahead and do that. Okay, now our new user should be saved. Let's go over into MongoDB Compass. For now, we can't actually see any users collection over here. But if we refresh, we can actually see a users folder has been created. And inside, we can see the very object that we've created. Now we could keep running this code again and again, changing this data to create new users inside our database. However, that's a really inefficient way of doing things. The better way would be to actually utilize the request bodies that we're getting in different requests and use them to post to our database and actually add information to it. We're going to do that in the next lesson, so stick around for that. Good luck and happy coding!